We're diving into a truly epic story. It's a journey of faith, really, from the absolute depths of persecution all the way to a place of prominence. And we're going to see it all through the pivotal moments that defined it. This isn't just a history lesson, it's a saga of impossible odds, painful lessons, and ultimately profound mercy.
Everything really starts with this prophecy. I mean, just try to imagine hearing these words when your community is at its absolute weakest, scattered and oppressed. It's promising a victory in a battle that seems completely out of the question. It was this promise of a future that literally no one could see yet, but it planted a seed of this incredible, unwavering resolve.
Okay, so let's get right into it. We're at the Battle of Badr, the very moment that prophecy was put to the ultimate test. This is the showdown where a few hundred believers stood up against 1,000 of the most powerful warriors in the entire region. This was the moment where everything, and I mean everything, changed.
Now, what's so wild here is the sheer imbalance of it all. Just look at these numbers. On one side, you have this small, pretty poorly equipped band of believers. And on the other, you've got the full military and economic might of the Quraysh tribe, who are absolutely determined to crush this new faith once and for all. The odds were, well, they were staggering. Before the main armies even clashed, the whole tone of the battle was set by these three champions' duels. Hamza, Ali, and Ubaidah stepped forward for the Muslims, and in this swift, decisive combat, they defeated the leaders of the Quraysh. You could just feel the morale shift in that very instant. 3 duels, 3 victories. Suddenly, the impossible was starting to feel possible.
So the takeaway here is massive. After Badr, everything was different. The Muslims were no longer just some persecuted minority hiding out in Medina. No way. They had defeated the undefeatable. They were now a real force to be reckoned with, and the entire power structure of Arabia was just shaken to its very core.
But, victory can breed overconfidence. The next major fight, the Battle of Uhud, would end up being this harsh, painful reminder that victory is never, ever guaranteed. This was a lesson that was going to be etched in blood and sacrifice. So get this. The battle was nearly won. But then a group of archers, who the Prophet had placed on a strategic hill with strict orders not to move no matter what, they saw the enemy retreating. Believing it was all over, they abandoned their post to go claim spoils. And that single act of disobedience, it opened their flank to a devastating surprise cavalry charge. The tide turned in a heartbeat.
What came next was just sheer chaos. But right in the middle of it all, we witnessed these incredible acts of loyalty. A small group of companions, like Talha ibn Ubaidillah, they literally formed a human shield around the Prophet. They took arrows and sword blows meant for him. The Ansars fought to the very last man to protect him. It was just this desperate, courageous last stand.
Wow. This quote is just devastating. You can almost hear the grief in his voice. It really highlights the immense human cost of that one tactical error, but also the profound, unbreakable bond he shared with those who gave their lives. Uhud was a defeat, for sure, but it was a lesson in obedience and loyalty that would never, ever be forgotten.
Okay, so now the threat escalates. Big time. It's not just another battle anymore, this is a war of annihilation. A massive confederation of tribes, 10,000 strong, is marching on Medina itself. Their goal is simple, to wipe the Muslim community completely off the map. The city is under siege.
So facing these overwhelming numbers, the community turned to pure ingenuity. On the advice of Salman the Persian, they did something no Arab army had ever seen before. They dug a massive defensive trench around the vulnerable parts of the city. When the huge Confederate army arrived, they were just stopped in their tracks, completely stunned. Their cavalry was totally useless.
The siege became this long stalemate, which was finally broken by one legendary moment. A fearsome warrior, Amr ibn Ab Wood. He actually managed to cross the trench and challenge the Muslims to a duel. Ali ibn Abi Talib stepped forward. And this moment, wow, it was more than just two warriors. It was a clash of entire worldviews. Ali offered him peace through faith first. Amr, he just wanted combat and glory. Faith met arrogance, and faith won. Amr's defeat completely demoralized the besieging army. That, combined with some harsh weather and a lot of internal squabbling, caused the great siege to just crumble. The crucial point here is that the community proved it could not be broken by outside force. Their unity and their clever strategy had overcome the greatest military threat they had ever faced. So after years of defending, of just surviving, the momentum finally begins to shift. The narrative isn't about survival anymore,
It's about return. And the destination is Mecca, the very city from which the prophet and his followers had been so brutally kicked out years before.
You have to understand, this wasn't some sudden move. It was the result of years of strategy. A truce that bought them time, a decisive campaign at the fortress of Khaybar that secured their northern flank, and then, finally, a violation of the treaty by Mecca's allies gave them the justification they needed. Every single step was deliberate, and it was all leading to this one moment.
Look at that number, 10,000. Do you remember the 300 at Badr? This is now the largest, most unified army the Arabian Peninsula had ever seen. Can you just imagine the sight? As they marched towards Mecca, a city that had fought them for 2 decades, the tension must have been immense.
So this is the question on literally everyone's mind. Was this it? Was this going to be the final, bloody showdown for control of the holy city? The leaders of Mecca, who had spent years trying to destroy this movement, now saw it at their gates, 10,000 strong. They were expecting retribution. They were expecting a bloodbath.
But what happened next was just unheard of. The prophet marched his army into Mecca, and the city surrendered peacefully. There was no revenge, no slaughter. It was a victory that wasn't won by the sword on that day, but by years of patience, strategy, and moral resolve. A truly bloodless conquest.
Now, with Mecca, their greatest external enemy subdued, you'd think the story was over, right? But the final tests were still to come. The first was a battle against their own internal pride, and the second was going to be the ultimate lesson in mercy.
Right after the conquest of Mecca, a new tribal confederation attacked. The Muslim army was even bigger now, and some of them, forgetting the hard lesson of Badr, felt invincible. You can almost hear one of them boasting, "There's no way we can lose with these numbers." Well, that exact arrogance led them straight into a devastating ambush, and the army almost completely collapsed. They had to learn all over again that true strength comes from faith, not just numbers.
And this right here is the ultimate lesson of this entire epic journey. After the victory at Hunain, the rest of the enemy fled to the fortified city of Taif. The Muslims laid siege to it, but that fortress held strong. The people of Taif hurled insults, they hurled projectiles, and instead of cursing them back, the prophet raised his hands and prayed for their guidance.
After weeks of a really difficult and costly siege, the prophet just gave the order to withdraw. For a lot of the soldiers in the army, it must have felt like a failure. They'd come so far, and now they were just leaving this final pocket of resistance untouched. It seemed like such an anticlimax, almost a defeat.
So the crucial point is this. About a year goes by, and then a delegation from Taif travels all the way to Medina. They didn't come as conquered people. They came willingly to embrace Islam. The victory that couldn't be won by siege engines or swords was ultimately achieved through a patient prayer and an incredible act of mercy.
And this really leaves us with a final thought to ponder. From that desperate defense at Badr to the siege of the trench, the bloodless conquest of Mecca, and finally that prayer for Taif, this entire journey forces us to redefine what victory actually means. Is it about defeating your enemy, or is it about winning their hearts? It's a question that echoes far, far beyond the sands of Arabia.